I'm looking and wanting my husband.
Hi everybody, this is Rosemary with Upper 90 Logos and Embroidery, and I'm here today just to do a Facebook Live, and I thought I'd do it on the Luminaire today. We have, actually I shouldn't say we, I have been a little busy, so of course you know that I run the Kimberbell events here for all brands, and I thank them for allowing me to do that. So some of the new things that they've come out with has been some really cool bench pillows. During the winter, right before Christmas, a group of us did the Ginger's Kitchen bench pillow, which was really cool. But the biggest thing they asked was, how do you do the quilting around the designs? Because some of the ladies have Luminaire, so we kind of did it. It was a learning experience for them. And for me, because we completed the embroidery design and then decided to quilt it. Well, that's not the way we really should do it. We really have to incorporate the embroidery and the quilting. So whether you're doing stippling or using the fills in my design center, you have to kind of do it all in one. So, well, I'm gonna pick up this huge pillow. These pillows are big. As you can see, there's different elements in there, but they're really kind of cool. Little gnome has glitter instead of fabric for applique, and he's got little feet that kind of move around, which are kind of neat. Ribbon accents, more glitter. The little buttons, there's a little bee, I think he's adorable on that. They have a new product, which is the faux leather, which is really neat, and this is nice and shiny, very mermaid-like. And then this guy here is sitting next to his little frog friend, and he's got his little button rain boots on, and all these move too, so they move around. More glitter, more buttons. So it's a combination of, oh, this rainbow has mylar behind it. I don't know if you can see the shiny on that. So it has a combination of embroidery and sewing. So you actually do have to sew the pinwheels and to make those, and then it gives you a diagram on how everything fits together, which is really great. But we decided we wanted to quilt everything as we go. So behind the whole panel is a layer of batting, but actually the layer of batting comes in pieces. So when we do this guy, there's a layer of batting, and so on and so on. These sewn pieces right here, I did separately. Now, since I do not have a Luminaire or a Stellaire, I did all my quilting in PE Design 11. So I brought those designs in and decided to do that. And I also did that to these sewn blocks right here. So you can see there's quilting there. So I did not, even though I love free motion, I did not free motion anything on this. I actually created a file to quilt to this. The only thing I did kind of free motion was straight line stitching on the border part, and all I did was follow the green of it, and you probably can't see it. It's not very dense. I'll bring it a little bit closer, but there it is right there. And then you sew all the accents and stuff together. So what we're going to do today is I'll show you how to do it on the Luminaire. So those of you with a Stellaire or Luminaire, you're in for a big treat. And I'll show you kind of some tips and tricks. So if you're doing something like this, or if you're embroidering on a quilt and you want to do it a block at a time and then put it all together, this is kind of how I've done it. I'm sure there are many ways to do it, but this is the way I did it here. So I'm going to flip you around. And there we go. So here is, I've already turned on the Luminaire. Let me wake her up. Wakey, wakey. I'm going to go to my pocket and my USB, because that's where they're living. And I put 3 files up here. And I'm going to do this hat first, because this is one of the bigger ones on here. And sometimes my pen works, and sometimes it doesn't. And press set. All right, so there is my my hat. I'm going to go to edit, So this is both on the Luminaire and on the still layer. You can go to edit, and say for this one I just want to do basic stippling around it. So I'm just going to hit on my stippling button. My pen did stop working. Let's see if I can turn it back on. No, my pen's not cooperating, but that's all right. We're just going to use our finger. Oop. Let me go to that one. I showed you too much already. All right, so just hitting the stippling button, I have stippling around my design. So I have some choices to make. When you do one of these Kimberbell kits, they show you how to, or they tell you how to cut each piece. And so this one in particular, I'm bringing up the file here. This piece in particular, I'm sorry, hold on a second. My iPad went to sleep. This piece in particular, that background fabric is 8.5 by 10.5. So I definitely don't want to do a whole big hoop with stippling. So pretty much the process for this is that I hoop my tearaway stabilizer, and then I put a piece of batting that fit inside the hoop. So I covered that whole sewing area with batting. And then I found my center points on my background fabric and placed it inside the hoop right on top of the batting, matching up the cross, the center marks on the hoop. So obviously I don't want to do in this big hoop, so let's find another hoop to do it in. Since it is 8.5 by 10.5, I went and did it on my my 8 by 12 hoop, and that was fine with that one. So doing it that way, because even though the fabric is 8.5 by 10.5, it's getting cut down, so you're fine with that. So there's my stippling right there. For me, now after this is all personal preference. I don't like it to be that close to my design here. So I'm going to use the distance button, and I'm going to increase the distance away from the design. Still too much. See right there, I don't want anything right there. So I can just hold it down and see what the next one shows me. That's not too bad. Actually, I still have an element right there. It's still too close for my preference. And that's okay. Say, let's leave it right there. But this is all pretty dense. Now remember, all this is, is being stitched out. These files don't take very long because all this right here is an applique here and the hat. And these two here are also applique, the two little clovers there. But I don't want that much, so I'm going to increase my spacing too. Oop, that's too much. Too much spacing. I just held it down for too long. That's not bad. That's at a 0.48. Let's take it down just a little bit. Ooh, that's better. I like that. And once you're set on that, you can say okay, and you can go on and do embroidery from that. Okay? So let's do another thing here. Let me ungroup that and select the stippling and delete that. All right, now I still have my hat again. But say I want to do a decorative fill instead. And we'll do this a couple of times because this is kind of cool. So instead of the stippling button, I'm actually going to go to this little flower. That little flower right there is going to create artwork for us. And if you can see right inside the line, or right around the hat and around everything around it, you're going to see that black line. So I want to increase the distance from it because I don't want it to be that close to my design. I want to definitely get rid of this interior element here. Almost there. A little bit more. Oh, that's pretty good. I like that a lot because I just want that to be one solid piece. And then I say memory because I'm going to save it and it's going to tell me it's going to recall it from my design center stamp pattern list. So if you've been working with your Luminaire, you know where that is, but I will show you and say okay. And then I can leave it alone. I can actually go into my design center. Can I go from here? I cannot. So I'm going to go home, say okay, go to my design center, and I am going to recall that pattern from my stamp pattern list. There's that flower right there. So I'm going to click on that, and I've done this tons and tons of times, and there is my outline. So when it comes in, once you say okay, it comes in, it's just that outline that you just created. It's just artwork. So now we get to decide what we want to do. Again, depending on what this size here is going to be depending on what hoop you choose. So I'm going to go back into my stamp pattern list, and I'm going to select my hoop from up here. I'm going to select my 8 by 12 right there and say okay. And now I have that area distinguished here. I'm going to go into my fill properties. I can either touch here or touch the setting page right there. And I'm going to not do the stippling because I did that in embroidery. So I'm going to hit my design fills, select, and select something from here. Let me see. Let me look at my pillow. What did I decide to do on that one? Oh, I just did this big diamond right here. And all of these were available in your PE design. So those of you that got the that were bundled, that had PE design 11 bundled with your Luminaire purchase, this one is in there right there. So I'll say okay, and I can leave the color alone and say okay. I'm going to take my bucket because the bucket does it, and voila. Now I have my cross hatch, my little diamond. I can say next. And I can either mess with the size, I can mess with the direction, I can turn the outline off, which it is. I can make it a random kind of floaty type of design. That looks really good with the circle design, not so much with this design. It just distorts all the straight lines with it. And then you can center it, how much you want to center. Those are good for those fills that are that look like, you know, look like a picture. So it's really kind of cool. But I say I'm going to leave it all like that and set it. And okay. And now I don't want to do this right away. So I'm going to put it in my memory on my machine. Why not? All right. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to bring back that because I want to do this all together. I'm going to bring back my hat. I'm going to set it. I'm going to add on my machine. And there it is right there. Voila. Now I have it all ready to go. It's going to stitch out all the elements of my embroidery, and then it's going to stitch out my design fill. And that's how we do that. Once it's all stitched out, the directions tell you what size to cut it. It's going to get cut to, oops, 6.5 by 8.5. So you'll have stitching that is, you know, exposed. You can do one or two things. I picked out some of it away from the batting so I could cut some of the batting, and after that it got a little tedious, so I just sewed it together from one block to another. I went, it's not really a quilt, it's just a pillow that's no one's gonna really lay on, so I said, that's all right. So there's that one way of doing it. Let me do another way of bring another one in here. Go to my embroidery on my USB. And let's take a look at this rainbow, because we'll do another feature in the embroidery side of it. So in my edit, we did the stippling. So let's select that. Select what hoop it is. This file in particular is smaller. I want to say it is a 4x4. And it is the fabric that you're going to embroider on is 6.5 by 6.5. So let's set our... I know, I went too fast. I'm going to put this in my 8x8 hoop because that's what I did that on at home. And there you go, there's my square. So that's what it looks like with the stippling. But I thought, since it was a rainbow and the way it curves like this, we'll do a little radial or a little echo quilting on that. So if I click on the flower with the little echo lines, it will come out like that. We can decide to increase or decrease the distance. I obviously do. Let's see what it looks like there. All this is personal preference, whatever you want. That's not too bad. And the distance means the distance away from your embroidery, because you can see that the distance between each ring is smaller than the distance from the embroidery. So I like it there. The spacing here is the spacing in between each ring. So I can increase my spacing. Let's see what that comes up to. Yeah, that's not bad. I'm gonna, maybe not go that much. That's pretty good too. I'm gonna go a little bit more. I think I actually had my spacing rather large, because again, I don't want things to stay on the on my machine all that long. Now, the advantage of doing this in the software part of it is that I was able to get rid of some things that were not connected in here. So things here were not connected, so I was able to delete it or cut it, and that way I had some room around the perimeter with that batting. So that one turned out like that. So I really like it. And I'll show you what that looks like on the pillow in a little bit. All right, let's do one more. I hope everybody's feeling okay about this, and you're practicing with that. Let's do one more design, and I'm going to bring up on my USB, and I'm going to do this label right here. The labels are pretty cool. And if you are not using Shape Flex on the back of your embroidery, you should really consider it. It's a Pellon product, and it's Shape Flex or SF101. It's a fusible kind of woven like interfacing that you put on the back. I know some ladies that put it in the back on all their embroidery, and it's going to decrease the amount of pull or puckering that you're going to get. And so with this Kimberbell design, they highly recommend that you do that on these labels, because that label right here is going on one piece of fabric. So there's a background fabric that's being put on the hoop, on the stabilizer. It will stitch out the outline for this fabric. You're going to put that fabric on top of there with Shape Flex on it, and it will tack it down. And then it's going to stitch out everything. You won't, even though it's an applique, you're not going to cut away from that until you've done that. So it's going to do all of that, and then it will, obviously your machine will stop, you'll cut around it, and then it'll do its final satin. So that's going to help prevent that puckering. So that Shape Flex really does help a lot. I really enjoy it. I do a lot of it on, especially on some more dense embroidery. All right, so let's do our Design Center exercise one more time. So let's set it. I'm going to take a peek of what I did on that one. Oh, this one's neat. I like this one a lot. Boy, you can really go down a rabbit hole trying to pick a design, because you have so many on your machine. So we're going to go and edit. We're going to do our little flower right here to create some distance, to create an outline around it. And this one's pretty easy. Again, it is just personal preference how far you want to go from it. That looks pretty good. I'm going to put it in my memory, and it's going to say recall from my Design Center stamp pattern list, and say okay, and you're done. You can go home because you want to add it later. Say okay. Let's go to my Design Center, and we're going to go to my stamp pattern list right there. Go to that flower, because that's the one we pressed to make that, and there it is. So, and say okay, and there's that label, that outline for that label. That's going to create that space between the embroidered section and the fill section. So let us go back into our stamp pattern list and select our hoop. What did I say this one was? Or perhaps I didn't. Let me find it one more time. This one is an 8.5 by 10.5 by 8.5 background fabric. So the 8 by 12 will be just fine with that. And say okay, because the embroidery field is actually a 5 by 7. So you're fine with that. I'll say okay, or if even the 9.5 by 9.5 would work. Let's see what that looks like. Sure. Why not? Let's do that. We can either select this button right here for our properties or this one. So I'll press on that one. It's going to take us to there. We're going to select our decorative fill. And I believe sometimes on the computer it looks different, but I'm pretty sure I did like a basket fill. This one right there. And say okay. And I'll leave it just red because it doesn't matter. The bucket does it. If you had the paintbrush on, you could swipe on here and just, you know, it would just be like you're painting something on the wall. But you really want to fill in that area. That's why you click on the bucket and it does the job right there. So that's all right. Let's say next. And I do want to increase the size of it. Let's see what that looks like. I'll say okay. That's not bad. I want to go a little more. Actually, how far can you go? That's better. Not as dense, but that's going to look really good around there. My outline is off. My direction is fine. I don't want to randomize it, and it's a simple design, so I'm just keeping it there. And say set. It's going to exit to go into the embroidery part. Say okay, and there you go. I'm going to keep it in my memory on my machine, and I can delete it because I want to start with my embroidery on my USB. There's my label. Set it. Add from my machine. I was like, oh, I don't know where it is. There it is. And set. And there you go. So now you have this nice little embroidery section that you'll have that label, and then it's going to go and do the embroidery. In fact, in my hoop view, I have my little, this is one of my favorite little party tricks here, because I love this feature on the machine. We call it a slow redraw or a stitch creator, stitch generator, whatever. Everybody calls it something different, but it's going to show you what gets stitched out first. So if I click on the needle, I can, let's go to there and click play, and it's going to show you what gets sewn and in what order. So this is this is a software feature. So this is something that I use all the time. That way I can make sure that everything's going to be stitching out in the correct sequence. It's going to do that, do the satin all the way around, and then it's going to start on the, hello, there you go. And then it's going to start on the quilting all the way around it. If you do it on the 3 fast one, it'll fly by. Very cool, super cool feature. So I really enjoyed that. So I hope that obviously I did this with a Kimberbell design because that's the project that we're doing this week. You can do this with any embroidery design that you can bring in. You can practice on the designs that are on the machine, or you can let me flip you around, or can I flip? There we go. Hey Lisa, how y'all doing? Hey Dina, how's your mama? I hope she's getting better. And hi Maria. Maria is oh my goodness, Maria is a brother educator. So Maria, you chime in, make a comment if I said something wrong. But she's absolutely fabulous, and every time one of the educators come around, I learn a lot from them. So let me show you some of the little quilting. So there's that rainbow feature, that little arc feature that I did. So that is pretty big. So maybe about a ½ an inch or so and the distance between them. So I like that. Here's the crosshatch on the bench on the flower pot. Hey Chris. Hey, say hi, Chris.
Hello,
Chris has a
how you doing
Luminaire.
there?
Actually, I'm here. Not only am I here doing this, but we're going to do a PE Design 11 class.
Gotta give me one of these.
Yeah, you need to. These are really cool.
Yeah.
We're doing PE 11 class at 2 o'clock, so we're gonna learn to do that. My gnomies, my gnomes, I decided to keep the same and kept it with this kind of like bubble feature there. So that one, I could have made it like a pebble looking one and randomized it if I had the machine to do that with. These right here, once I stitched them out, I measured them. And so these are 2.5 inch squares, so it comes out to 4.5 inches. And in my software, I created this design and then added the quilting to it. So let me show you, I'll show you how to do that because that's kind of cool. Let me flip you around one more time. So let's get out of here and go back into my design center because this is a really cool way of doing it. Now, those of you that got a Luminaire quilt show and got the big bundle and everything, you got this software, so you can do it in software and you can practice how to do this. But if you did not, you can actually go into my stamp pattern list and create a square. And so it could be a little tricky, so let's go to size, and I'm going to come down to make this 4.5. And I'm going to make this 2.5. Oh, a little bit too much. All right, so there is my block. So once I sew it out, there is the shape. So what I've created right now is a placement line for that. So I can say okay, and let's see. I'm not going to make it a satin. I'm just going to make it a running stitch. Say okay. I can, oops, let's select it. And I'm going to duplicate it. Actually, I'm going to save it.
If you're really hungry, go get your lunch. If you're not that hungry, go to the machines.
I'm going to save it. I'm going to close. I'm doing this on the fly. It's easy in software. All right, I'm going to save that file on the machine, just the artwork. I'm going to click next. And I wanted it to be this, a running stitch, because it's just a placement stitch, and say set and okay. And I'm going to commit it to memory because I'm going to bring that, I'm going to put it all together. All right, I'm going to go back and my design center, memory, oh, hello, oh, pocket out, sorry about that, that one, and say okay. There it is again. Now I'm going to fill it. So with that one, I went in here, did a decorative fill. You could do stippling if you wanted to. Select, and which one did I do? I guess it doesn't matter. We could do any of it. Say I decide to do this one and say okay, and say okay again. The bucket does it right in there. Then I can keep going because I want to make that much bigger. Sometimes I move faster than the machine, and I'm going to increase it Let's see what that looks like. Hey, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go just a little bit more. All right, that looks really good. I don't want that, so I'm going to go to there, and I can make that this, and voila. Now I can set it and go into my embroidery. So, and let me save it, and I'm going to bring it all in. I'll delete it, bring it in from, that's going to be my placement line, so I can place that block on my stabilizer or on my batting. Here's that. Set. Add. Oops. Yeah, I did it. Sorry. Add from my machine and set. And there you go. And that's how you quilt a block, you know, that doesn't have embroidery, and you just want to fill a 4.5 by 4.5 inch space. You create it in your design center and go from there. So, alrighty, turn you all around again. So I hope this was helpful and for you, and makes you use your machine. My design center is really fantastic. What I just did is probably my favorite part of my design center, because I'm going to do a lot of I guess just quilting and embroidery, incorporated the embroidery with my quilting. It's really a fantastic thing. So I hope you get to join me at some point in time. My P Design 11 class, I hold those maybe every other month. You just have to check the calendar. I do have some other classes coming up that are kind of cool. So let me bring up my calendar real quick, because I think on the not photos, Rosemary, calendar, besides all the new owner stuff I do, I have the KBA Stitch Club, which is what we're doing, the bench pillow. That's going to meet Friday and Saturday, and that's just a bunch of ladies. We just get together and we do some Kimberbell projects. You can contact me, and I can fill you in on that. We decide what we're going to make and when we're going to do it. So it's a very loose group. And on the 19th of February, I'm doing an Embrilliance Basics. So those of you who have Embrilliance, definitely come by.